Today at 10 a.m, a single Ukrainian MiG-29 fighter jet crossed the front line near Kherson at an altitude of just 50 feet. Its mission was precise and perilous: to strike a Russian-controlled grain silo that had been repurposed into a drone command and control center. For several minutes, the flight remained uneventful, but within seconds, the silence was shattered. A Russian Iglas missile fired from a nearby checkpoint locked onto the MiG's engine exhaust and streaked skyward in a twisting column of smoke. The missile's spiral plume cut through the morning haze, already turning toward its target. The pilot reacted instantly, a hard pull left, then right, crossing the missile's flight path and forcing it to overshoot. But the danger had only begun. Within 4 seconds, 3 more Iglas were launched from different angles. Russian soldiers were firing blindly, without radar lock, hoping proximity alone would be enough. Inside the cockpit, the pilot's SPO-15 Berioza radar warning receiver stayed silent. It was designed to detect radar-guided threats, but infrared missiles like the Iglas left no trace on its sensors. It was like having a smoke alarm that couldn't detect actual fire, only smoke. The rising plumes ahead were his only warning as 3 missiles converged. He yanked the MiG into a maximum rate brake turn, pulling 9 Gs. The force pinned him into his seat, his vision narrowing, but the missiles couldn't match the maneuver. All 3 overshot harmlessly into empty sky. Those launches, however, came at a cost. Each bright trail marked his position for miles. Every Russian outpost from Kherson to Crimea now knew where to look. He dropped back to just 50 feet, skimming above power lines at 540 knots. His radar altimeter screamed warnings. The instrument read 50 feet, but over uneven terrain, the true clearance fluctuated between 20 and 80. One moment of distraction meant a high risk of ground impact. This was a nap of the Earth, a no-E flight at its most extreme, using terrain to break radar lock every few seconds. Powerline corridors offered safe passage from unexpected obstacles, but they also brought him dangerously close to rooftop manpads teams, now aiming down at him. More smoke trails appeared. More Iglas fired, some from behind as soldiers tried desperate over-the-shoulder launches, hoping he'd fly through their kill zone. Each evasive maneuver burned 200 pounds of fuel. With only 7,000 pounds on board, 35 more turns like this would leave him stranded. At this altitude, navigation systems were useless. The pilot flew purely from memory, relying on landmarks and instinct, his Mark I eyeballs. Though he had outflown a dozen missiles, a P-18 spoon rest radar, an old Soviet VHF system, began to pick up faint returns. Operating at 150 to 170 MHz, its long wavelengths could penetrate terrain better than modern X-band radars, like hearing bass through walls, even when the melody is lost. The Russian operator watching those flickering blips inferred a probable route from intermittent returns. He alerted a Pantsirs S-1 crew positioned 12 kilometers ahead. If the pilot survived the next wave of Iglas, he'd soon be flying into something far deadlier. The newest Iglas variants could see across both near and mid-infrared spectrums, designed to resist countermeasures like flares. The MiG's countermeasure, chaff flare dispensers, held 60 cartridges in total. 6 were already gone. The math was getting grim. Another checkpoint ahead fired a missile, but trying to hit a jet moving at 540 knots from a standing start was futile, like throwing a rock at a bullet. The missile corkscrewed wildly into a field. Banking around a radio tower, the pilot glanced back. Clear for now. But each evasion left a trail of phone calls and radio chatter, with Russian troops relaying his route. The entire occupied sector was waking up units along the route, increasing alert status. His radar warning receiver finally came alive, multiple search radars sweeping on. Every air defense system within 50 miles was spinning up. Ahead, a manpads team appeared on a factory rooftop. They fired before he could react. To avoid impact, he climbed to 200 feet, a dangerous exposure, but better than being hit. The instant he rose above the horizon, his SPO-15 display erupted with signals. Dozens of radar beams from different systems painted him, each spike a potential kill. The Pantsirs 1 RS-2E radar switched between search and track modes. Search mode scans broadly. Track mode maintains a narrow lock. The moment it switched to track mode, he'd have seconds before missile launch. The pilot executed a notch maneuver, turning perpendicular to the radar beam so that his Doppler velocity blended with ground clutter. On radar screens, he vanished, a ghost among background noise. But that deviation burned more fuel and added miles. Every maneuver now was a trade: survive this radar, or have enough fuel to get home. As he weaved and ducked, Russian operators were coordinating a layered ambush. The P-18 radar acted as bait, detecting him through terrain and guiding X-band fire control radars for the kill. It was a combined arms trap, one radar to find, another to finish. At the same time, a Tor M2 air defense system began powering up. Its electronically steered array, the 9A331 radar, required 3 minutes to boot. Once active, it could track 48 targets and engage 4 simultaneously. The MiG would enter its kill zone in less than 2 minutes. Complicating things further, the Krasuka 4 electronic warfare system degraded GPS L1/L2 signals. The pilot watched as his satellite link dropped from 8 satellites to 4. The JDAM-ER bomb he carried required at least 8 for 5-meter precision. With half that, its accuracy might degrade to 30 meters. The difference between striking the silo and hitting an empty field. But Ukrainian engineers had planned for this. Their modified JDAM-ERs were fitted with an enhanced inertial navigation system, INS, using ring laser gyroscopes, allowing 10-meter accuracy for up to 2 minutes without GPS. It remembered every motion since release. The pilot checked the weapon. Power good, INS active, all systems green. The modified pylon interface, a jury-rigged digital bridge between American bombs and a Soviet airframe, was performing flawlessly. He uploaded coordinates, set fallback guidance to barometric and inertial modes, and adjusted for atmospheric factors. A 5-knot headwind, standard pressure of 29.92, and moderate temperature. With everything ready, he approached the initial point, the final moment to commit. The Tor M2 would be fully operational in 45 seconds. To complete his attack, he'd have to climb straight into its engagement zone. The pilot took one deep breath, checked his remaining flares, 48, and went to full afterburner. The twin RD-33 engines, producing a combined 36,600 pounds of thrust, pushed the MiG nearly vertical. The aircraft climbed at 280 meters per second, the altimeter spinning rapidly. This was an energy climb, yo-yo profile, trading speed for altitude. Then came the sound every fighter pilot fears, the continuous tone of a radar lock. The Tor M2 had acquired him. Airspeed dropped as altitude rose, 480 knots, 420, then 380. He needed to reach 15,000 feet before his speed bled below 180 knots, or he'd stall before releasing the bomb. The math left no margin. At this moment, the Tor M2 launched a 9M331 missile, command-guided, Mach 2.5, intercepting in 11 seconds. The JDAM release window opened in 6. He held the climb, resisting every instinct to maneuver. At 14,000 feet, his stall warning sounded. At 15,185 knots, he pressed the release, the pickle switch. Explosive bolts fired, releasing the 500-pound JDAM-ER. The bomb tumbled briefly before deploying its diamond-shaped glide wings and stabilizing. Its flight computer engaged, beginning a 40-mile glide toward the Russian silo below. But the MiG's danger wasn't over. He needed 2 more seconds of straight flight for clean separation. 2 seconds that felt eternal with a missile closing fast. Then he dove inverted into a split S maneuver, deploying chaff to create a cloud of radar-reflective aluminum. The Tor's radar lost its Doppler lock. The Russian operator switched to optical mode, trying to guide the missile manually, but the chaff and optical limitations disrupted manual guidance. The missile detonated 300 meters away, close enough for shrapnel to rip through the MiG's port engine. Exhaust gas temperatures spiked. The pilot shut the engine down, stabilizing on 1. 40 miles behind enemy lines, the MiG-29 was still flying, barely. Soviet engineers had designed it for redundancy. Single-engine flight was possible, but difficult. He turned west toward friendly territory, skimming at 800 feet over Holopristan. The city erupted with fire. Multiple Zu-23 2 autocannons, each spitting 950 rounds per minute, created a wall of tracer fire. The Russians weren't aiming. They were performing barrage fire, filling the sky with lead in front of the jet's predicted path. Every fifth round glowed red, streaking past like laser beams. Each tracer marked its round's trajectory. Except these were 23mm projectiles traveling twice the speed of sound. He kept jinking in random 2-3 G-turns every 2 seconds to defeat predictive targeting. On 2 engines, it would have been manageable. On 1, it was torture. Hydraulic warnings illuminated yellow, then red. Primary system failure. The backup hydraulics engaged, giving him only 30% control authority. Each stick movement required brute force. Then came the sound no pilot wants to hear. The hollow, metallic thuds of rounds punching through aluminum skin. The MiG shuddered with every hit, yet somehow it kept flying. With one engine, failing hydraulics, and multiple control surfaces damaged, the aircraft clawed forward. Proof of Soviet over-engineering and pilot discipline. The border was just 35 miles ahead. Behind him, the JDAM-ER was descending toward the Russian command silo. Traveling at 287 meters per second, the weapon struck the structure's central support column. The FMU-152 programmable fuse, set for delayed detonation, allowed it to penetrate several floors before exploding. Inside, 445 pounds of tritonol, a mix of TNT and aluminum powder, converted to energy in milliseconds. The 2,800 degrees Celsius fireball consumed everything. Concrete walls shattered as the blast wave propagated through at 1,700 meters per second, causing spalling where the building's own concrete became shrapnel. In just over 6 seconds, the entire 8,000-ton structure collapsed, each floor pancaking onto the next. A plume of dust rose 500 feet high, visible from Ukrainian observation posts across the river. Secondary explosions followed as stored Iglas missiles and drone batteries ignited, cooking off in chain reactions that rattled windows miles away. In the cockpit, the Ukrainian pilot, battered and exhausted, coaxed his crippled MiG back toward friendly airspace. One engine pushing, one dead, hydraulics failing, but alive. Behind him, the Russian drone headquarters ceased to exist. Its operators, who had directed hundreds of strikes against Ukrainian cities, were gone, silenced in a single surgical strike, delivered by one aircraft, one pilot, and one bomb. The strike eliminated the drone command site. Will Russia adapt to this evolving air threat, or is Ukraine now dictating the battle for the skies? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for watching.